by way of introduction, I want to tell you a bit about my day yesterday. I met the Southwark Pensioners Action Group, who are very worried about the closure of the Southwark Pensioners Centre. I met a group of leaseholders, people who bought their council flats some years ago and are now being threatened with huge capital charges, which they can't afford to pay. And I met a group of students at South Bank University who are passionately committed to our agenda on international development. And I was followed to all of those meetings by a throng of photographers because of the issue of donations to the Labour Party. And it has been a very painful week for the party. But it mustn't distract us from what we'll be working on today. And this is a particularly important meeting of the National Policy Forum, since it's the first time we'll be specifically working on the remits from our conference on equality, on manufacturing, and on housing. And the one thing that I will say about the donations issue is it makes it even more important that we tackle and expose the shadowy donors behind the Tory slush funds like the Midlands Industrial Council, and that we tackle the attempts, care of Lord Ashcroft, to buy their way into Labour marginals. And it is time to stop the election spending arms race. And the truth is that even after 10 years of Labour government, there are still things that we are determined to change. And the change that this country needs doesn't happen from a Cameron soundbite. Progressive change happens when the whole team works together, like everyone here today. Progressive change happens when you have a leader who knows where he's going because he listens, who's determined and serious, and who can't rest until he gets things right. And that's what I know and what you know are the absolute hallmarks of Gordon Brown's leadership. We're looking forward, Gordon, to hearing your plans for cleaning up and strengthening our democracy, and we look forward also to having some serious and productive debate. Gordon Brown.
I want to thank Harriet Harman both for what she said this morning and what she does. I want to thank Pat McFadden, who's the new chair of the National Policy Forum, for organising today's events. I want to thank all the Labour Party staff for all they have done in what has been the most difficult of weeks for them. And I want to thank you. And I want to thank you for your long-term commitment, your loyalty, your service, and your dedication to why we joined the Labour Party, and that is to improve and change and advance our society. And today, above the clamour of recent events, I want to talk to you about the long-term decisions and the long-term changes we need to make. Long-term decisions to prepare our country for the future. Long-term decisions to make sure Britain leads, best equipped for the challenges ahead. Long-term decisions because by unlocking all the talents of all our young people, there is security and prosperity in this country, not just for some, but for every one of our citizens. And in the last few months, and in the next few months to come, we are committed to a series of long-term changes to transform our society for the decades ahead. We are committed to building 3 million homes by 2020, so that there is affordable homes for the many. We're committed to constructing a 21st century health service so that healthcare is more than universal, as in the past. In future, it is universal and personal to everyone's needs. We're committed to leading the world with the first climate change bill, with legally binding cuts in carbon emissions, leading in the creation of a sustainable environment. And we're committed to action in the Queen's speech to cut crime and antisocial behaviour, and we're committed to introducing neighbourhood policing teams answerable to the people of every community, and to ensure managed migration where we attract the skills we need. We insist also on responsibilities discharged by those who come to our country. To make the long-term changes that we need in transport, energy, planning, and our airports, we want to support our leading industries so that we create not just jobs for the future, but highly skilled, well-paid jobs that millions of people need. And to make this possible, we're committed, as I'll say later, to ensuring that every young person in Britain has an apprenticeship, a college, or a university place, or is in training for them in the years to come. Now, preparing for the future means also that our constitution must change as well. And we must bring government closer to the people. That's why Jack Straw will publish our proposals for citizenship with a Bill of Rights and Responsibilities in the new year. That's why Hazel Blears is building a new concordat between local and central government to empower local people in making decisions in their own communities. And one area where reform can modernize our public realm is in encouraging greater participation in our democracy. And as we said we would do a few weeks ago when we had the Queen's speech, that includes reform of party finance and expenditure. Jack Straw has already been examining detailed proposals, and the latest problems in party funding show why it is right not to delay, but it is time to act. This past week brought the disclosure that some contributions to the Labour Party had been made in violation of reporting requirements. I am saddened to learn that this had been happening for some time, and I'm angry, as you are, when standards fall below what we and the general public want and have a right to expect. Where there is deliberate abuse, it corrodes confidence in the very idea of public service. And I believe we were right to act quickly and to set up an inquiry, and I am determined we'll get all the facts on the table without fear or favour. And we will cooperate fully with the Electoral Commission and with the official investigation. And in the light of the events of the last week, coming on top of difficulties that all parties have experienced over recent years, we have learned just how easily trust in our politics can be eroded, and how it is important that the highest standards are upheld and maintained. The last week has shown the need for immediate changes in our own party, but I would also argue that it has shown the need for broader change within our system of political funding. Disclosure of information is important because the public do have a right to know. Openness is indeed the best guide, transparency the best system, sunlight the best solution. But I'm more convinced than ever that more comprehensive safeguards for public disclosure are themselves only the first step to building higher standards of public confidence in our politics. Last year, sadly, the Labour Party faced accusations about loans. The Liberal Democrat Party had been questioned over a large donation from someone convicted subsequently of an offence. The last Conservative government faced accusations about cash for questions, secret donations, and contributions from foreign millionaires. John Major, with all-party support, established the Commission for Standards in Public Life. Tony Blair established the Electoral Commission. Now, 7 years after that was set up, it is time to go further. The 2000 Reform Act took important steps forward, banning foreign donations, setting up the Electoral Commission and the Appointments Committee, requiring all donations above 5,000 nationally and 1,000 locally to be made public. Now, notwithstanding these efforts of recent years, we must now complete the work of change. We must address all the problems that still remain to be resolved. We must not hesitate to make all the changes necessary, and we must seek at all times to build greater confidence in the integrity of our political system. Now, in his report on the 2000 Act, Sir Haydn Phillips concluded that the Act had sought to control the level of spending, but it had proved inadequate to the challenge. And he rightly diagnosed a serious problem, the escalating arms race between parties in election spending. None of us in any party should want a politics increasingly defined as a chase for money instead of what it should be, a contest of ideas. In the 12 months before the 2005 polling day, spending rose to £90 million, a 40% increase on 2001. Even when there are spending limits at election time, they can be unfairly overwhelmed by vast sums of money directed to targeted constituencies in between elections. So the Haydn Phillips final report of this autumn advanced proposals for major change. He recommends spending limits at both a national and a local level. He recommends there would be limits enforced not just at election time, but throughout the whole Parliament. Now, many of us, for many years, have also been troubled by the decline in the membership of all parties in Britain and elsewhere. And as the fundraising base of all parties has been diminished in this way, and yet our democracy requires to be financed, the effect has been to rely more heavily on a small number of individuals. What's more, with the spiralling costs of campaigns and the demands on cash to pay for them, parties requiring finance, without which they cannot fully play their part in our democracy, have had to seek ever larger sums from individuals who, in almost every case, act out of a strong sense of public duty. But while in the past, we in Britain have prided ourselves in access to politics, never to be dictated by private wealth, as in some other countries, for the future, we need also to be sure that politics is not perceived as serving the interests of the few, when it should serve at all times the interests of the many. And that's why the final version of the Hayden Phillips report has proposed ways in which there can be not just a ceiling on overall local and national spending, but a cap on individual donations. In the 2000 legislation, there is also scope for third parties to offer donations under agreed conditions. But while the complexity of the rules has caused genuine difficulties and led to mistakes, it has also allowed scope for abuse. So we must question whether it is appropriate for third-party organisations where there have not been full declarations to have as wide latitude as we've seen in some areas has been the case. Questions have also been raised about updating the 1980s legislation in respect of political funds. All reports show that this system has been free of any abuse. And following his detailed consultations, the second Hayden Phillips report proposes specific changes. In addition to what he says on donations, he proposes clearer information on the membership form that would outline the choice currently available to join or not to join the political fund. He proposes annual reporting to members. He proposes a clear one-for-one link between the number of political levy payers and the numbers affiliated to the Labour Party, all measures important to modernising the relationship. Because I believe it's now time to move forward, I believe our party should now discuss and agree reform and how best to make change work. Also, since the 1970s, the provision of what has been called short money and Cranwell money has provided public funds to the main opposition parties. So the principle of public funding of our democracy is already being implemented. And all the political parties have the opportunity of free television and radio time, along with free postage. The short funding has increased more than threefold since 1997. This year, the total amount of money going to opposition parties in the House of Commons was £6.6 million, and over £4.5 million of that was paid to the Conservative Party. While I myself need to be convinced that there would be public acceptance of extensions, I recognise that this will also be a source of continuing consultations. So, the Hayden Phillips proposals of this autumn represent a comprehensive framework for reform of party and election funding. Indeed, at various times, all political parties have welcomed this framework. I'm in no doubt it's time to move forward, having in the Queen's speech a few weeks ago promised proposals on party finance and expenditure. We should progress to the next stage on the basis of this framework of reform. Jack Straw, the Justice Minister, will now consult on the way forward. It would be best for the standing of politics as a whole that all can come to an agreement across party lines on the changes that are necessary. We would all prefer all-party consensus, but we will not accept one-party deadlock, a breakdown that serves only to block progress. While the task will not be easy and take time, the need is immediate, and the determination to agree and to put in place the necessary changes is real. And by achieving agreement on higher standards, I hope that we can work to build greater confidence in politics and in the public realm. A public realm where it should be the common ground where we come together to debate, discuss, and decide our shared future as a country. Now, political funding reform is part of those wider reforms needed to regenerate the public realm, to encourage a wider engagement in politics, to ensure that there are more people involving themselves, particularly more young people in the future. And let me explain why it is so important to encourage more people to involve themselves in shaping the future of this country. Let me give you one example of the last few weeks, where we have announced the most radical extension in the scope and scale of education for years to come. I'll talk later about housing, about the NHS, about childcare, about youth facilities, about conditions at work, about the environment and our quality of life. But I want to outline the far-reaching and fundamental changes that this year we will introduce so that Britain will make the biggest changes in education for 40 years, and Britain can lead the world with world-class schools and education. Our changes are to do what no government has attempted to do for decades, to raise the education leaving age, to raise it from 16 to 18, the first legislation to raise the education leaving age since 1944. And in doing so, we will also push ahead with other plans to give every child more hours in nursery education, to treble the number of children's centres, Sure Start centres, to be 5 or 6 in the typical constituency, offering from first age to 4 early learning and support. And then the extension of new educational opportunities to ensure that every qualified young person has the right to an apprenticeship, to reform tuition fees for students, so instead of just a few getting grants, 2/3 of students in future will have grants to go to university, to extend educational maintenance allowances so that no one is prevented from staying on in education to 18 or unable to go to university through lack of finance, and to introduce the new diploma whose excellence is acknowledged by universities and businesses, and then to address the needs of that group of young people, the thousands who are not at the moment in education, employment or work, who instead of falling through the net will in future receive special help to get education and then jobs. And with the spending round announcements in the last few weeks of more money for education, investment per pupil has risen from only £2,500 per year when we came into government to more than £5,500 per pupil per year, and we will move it annually closer to the £8,000 figure for private schools, because we want to give the best chances not to some of our young people, but to 100% of young people in this country. Now, these individual measures for changes, for new money, for new places, for new opportunities are important. But much more important to all of us is the underlying purpose of what we're trying to achieve what most of us joined the Labour Party to achieve, that every person in our country should have the chance to realise their potential to the full. I want us to be the first generation to unlock not just some of the talents of some of our young people, but to be able to say we are unlocking all the talents of all our young people. You know, 10 years ago, they said the apprenticeship was dying. Today, because of what we've done, there are 250,000 young people who are training as apprentices. Within a decade, as a result of announcements we made this year, there will be 500,000 young people training in an apprenticeship. A few years ago, they said the student grant was going to die. With 2/3 of students about to receive grants to go to university and to study at university, there will be more students with grants than at any time in our history as a country. And instead of education from 5 to 16, which has been the pattern for the last 3 decades, soon education, which starts at nursery school at the age of 3, will continue part-time or full-time from 16 to 18. And so we are offering not 11 years of education as under the Tories, but a guaranteed 15 years of education for young people under New Labour. And what's more, we're giving every adult, free of charge, the right to a second chance in education. Those who have missed the chance when they've been in their teens, but want to do basic courses to gain new skills, will get the chance free of charge to do so. So that hundreds of thousands of adults in our country can get for the first time the qualifications that they need for the jobs of the future. And to make these huge improvements so that there is genuinely opportunity not for some but for all, our reforms are increasing specialist schools, trust schools, academies. We're giving schools new powers of discipline and responsibility. We're reforming further education and colleges with more business input. We're introducing personalized learning, like the course Every Child a Reader, in our classrooms. And with our new Council for Educational Excellence, bringing in from business and the whole education sector anyone who can help us, we are single-mindedly focusing on making educational opportunity truly available at its best for all. And we're building extended schools, open for longer hours. We're about to offer up to 5 hours a week for sport. In communities around the country, we're also making a new commitment to teenagers. We will use the unused resources of orphan pension funds to build youth centres in every community of this country so that young people who rightly complain that they've got nowhere to go have the facilities that they have been denied for too long. And there's a fundamental principle at stake here that goes right to the heart of our beliefs. Every child matters. No young person should lose out or be left out. Nothing but the best is essential to ensure that every young person has the best start in life. And we want in every part of our country, every child, to have the chances that only some have had in the past. And if the country wants an illustration of the new political landscape that is now in British politics today, it is this, that while Labour supports opportunity for all, the Conservatives are revealing themselves as the party that supports opportunity just for some. So out of touch with are they, with the needs of ordinary families, that I've never hear them talk passionately about the benefits of apprenticeships, or even university places, or about the opportunity of diplomas for young people, or about more opportunities for young people if they stay on at school, or about the chances that some have been fortunate to obtain being made available to everyone. In the last few weeks alone, they've attacked the new diploma designed to end a two-tier system in education, and they've attacked it for what they say is undermining academic excellence. They have refused to commit to educational maintenance allowances, which give low-income teenagers the chance to stay on at school. They have refused to match us in supporting 50% of young people having the chance to go to university. And let us also remember where their U-turns on grammar schools took them. New grammar schools one day, against new grammar schools the next day, and then for new grammar schools the day after. The old policy. At one point, they said they were going to have a Clause 4 moment over grammar schools. Within a day or two, they were for no change, for keeping the old status quo. And they have refused to support raising the education leaving age from 16 to 18 and tried to claim that it is a stunt. So it is opportunity for all to 18 with a Labour government. It is opportunity for only some with the Conservatives. It is more young people going to university with Labour, fewer going to university under the Conservatives. It is more help with low-income families with educational allowances with the Labour government. It is less help for young people under the Conservatives. It is more status for diplomas with Labour. It is a two-tier education system with the Conservatives. And while the Conservatives now like to think they are the party of excellence for the few, we stand for excellence for all. And this offer of opportunity with Labour, the denial of opportunity to many with the Conservatives, goes to the very heart of the competing visions about the kind of Britain we want to be. Because we want every child and every young person to have the chance of a college or university place or an apprenticeship or be in training to do so. And it's more than just about competing visions, about opportunity for all. Our whole economic prosperity depends upon which competing vision of the future is going to win in the next few years. Our choice for Britain is different from the Conservatives' choice. One choice for Britain, the choice that we, the Labour Party, reject, is a low-skilled, low-paid economy competing in a race to the bottom with China, India, and Asia. But if our choice, a high-wage, high-skill economy, is to succeed, then Britain, a small country, cannot afford to waste the talents of any single individual. You cannot be first in business if you aspire not to be first in education. So our decisions on education have the most profound consequences for our economic future. The Tories will invest not in all, but in some. leaving many without the opportunities they need. Britain will end up competing for low-paid, low-skilled jobs with countries whose wages are 1/20th of ours. But if we invest in ensuring education and training for all is available, then we can be one of the high-skilled, high-paid economies of the future. The two-tier. And so it becomes very clear that the two-tier Tory policy, doing the best by some but not by all, will mean prosperity for some but not prosperity for all. Our one nation policy, the best educational opportunities for everyone, can bring prosperity for all. And this one nation Labour government will not only set out these different competing visions that separate us directly from the Conservatives, we will rally the country to our cause. We'll urge young people to stay on at school and get the qualifications they need. We'll persuade more young people to sign up for college or for apprenticeships. We will challenge young people throughout the country to make the most of the potential in this new world. We will call on adults to seize the second chance of more qualifications so that they can get better jobs too. We will evangelize about the benefits of education for opportunity and for prosperity for the future of our country. And we will work to make Britain the education nation of the future. The best chances for all with Labour, the best chances not just for some but for all, not just for education, but for a better prosperity for the future. So this, to me, is one of the purposes of our government and one of the purposes of public service. We can talk later in our question session about how we apply these same principles to the health service and to the work-life balance, and how we can build the houses of the future, and how we can increase opportunity and prosperity in every area in which we have responsibility in this country. It's not to put a floor below which no one can fall, but to create a society where there is no ceiling on how high you can rise. It's not the old welfare state which takes responsibility for you when you're in need. That is given. But it's also an empowering state where you can take responsibility for yourself, for a wider world, and for the next generation. And when the headlines of the moment fade and the dust settles, when the individual controversies fade away, this is where I and the Labour Party will stand for all the changes that will make Britain a more prosperous economy for all, a fairer society for all, and a stronger community for all. It will be a Britain where we at last sweep away the barriers that stand in people's way. It will be a Britain of community where compassion is not a slogan, but a commitment that we uphold. It will be a Britain where we all have the chance to go as far as our talents can take us. A Britain where government is on your side, not the two-tier Britain, divided and unequal, which Conservative policies would promote, but one Britain where all people can learn, earn, advance, and all families can both fulfill their potential to the full and have security, opportunity, and prosperity in every part of the country. That is our purpose, that is our task, and that, as we approach the making of policy for the next election, is the challenge ahead of us. Thank you very much.